You're listening to This Week in Property. Stay current, relevant and up to date in the world of property investment. Learn from the UK's leading property professionals and grow your property business.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Property. I'm your host Richard Swan, and in today's show I had the absolute privilege of sitting down with a fantastic couple who are deeply involved in running a successful property business here in the UK. And you're going to love hearing from them. Absolutely fantastic people. Quite a number of you, more than quite a number of you, have been in touch through the show, mail@thisweekinproperty.com. And you've been telling me about your own situations, your own personal setup, if you like. You know, Richard, I'm in my cubicle job at such and such company. I'm reading the books about property. I want to get into property, but I'm on my own. You know, it's just me. I might be in a relationship at home, but I'm the only one interested in creating my own business, in being an entrepreneur, in investing in property. And I'm holding myself back. I'm thinking about it, you know, the pros and the cons of trying to do something alone. Then others have got involved, saying you are a couple and you're not sure how will this work? You know, should the man start out first and then the woman follow behind? Should the woman leave her career first and then she starts with the property? And then does the man get the money? Does the woman get all of these different dynamics and questions? And even just the basic overriding question about any relationship: will it work? Will it stand up to the pressures that comes from a business? Because there's so many challenges, there's so many obstacles, there's so many stress points, that if you're having that as a career, as a business, okay, but then you're also adding on top of that a personal partnership, a home partnership. Will this work? Is it worth it? Can it succeed? What are different ways of doing it? What are things we should bear in mind? And that's what we brought together. So I've got a show coming up in the future, the not too distant future, where I have sat down and interviewed a solo entrepreneur. You could probably use the label as. And how does he get on? How has he formed and forged his path in success? What's been the good and the bad? What's been the ups and the downs? You know, what's the things to think about? What have been the challenges? What have been the rewards, etc. But this particular show, it's all about the couple. How have they made it happen? And who are they? Well, they are a beautiful couple by the name of Emily and Stuart Barnes. An absolute cracker of a team, an amazing team, doing all sorts of fantastic, interesting, fascinating, successful things in property. And we dig into everything. We go into the nuts and bolts, we go into strategies, tactics, what are they doing, whereabouts are they doing it in the country, what's their game plan, their locations, what about cash flow, what about long term, what about appreciation, what about the future, what's the milestones, what's the drivers, what's the mission, and what's been their background? What's their story? What's their individual stories and careers that brought them to that point of starting their property journey? And of course, how have they functioned? How have they successfully functioned as a couple doing that? And they've opened their doors to us. They've given so much time, so much input, been so open and honest to try and help you, the listeners, to gain from their experience, to hear their story, to map it onto your own life, and to learn from some of the things that they have successfully managed to do as a couple investing in property. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Emily and Stuart Barnes. So Emily, Stuart, welcome to This Week in Property. How are we, folks?
Very well, very warm, but very well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
The British summer, very warm. It's a lovely thing to say these days, so it is. Now, Emily and Stuart, I'll tell you, apart from Posh and Becks, this must be my favourite couple to chat to. It must be. And in fact, in UK property investment, you even beat Posh and Becks. You know, that's how good it is. So I'm really looking forward to our chat. We've tried a couple of times to get this organised, mostly my fault, a few technical issues as well, but we're here. which is great. And I know the listeners are going to get a lot from your story. And get a lot just from understanding where you are, what you're up to, what kind of things you're involved in, strategies, tactics, that kind of thing, because it's a massive world, as we know, when we deal with property. But before that, before we jump into our chat, let's have a quick overview of who these individuals are. So, Emily, if someone kind of tracked you down for a wee coffee and we're just chatting, you're into this property stuff, but before that, what's your kind of background? I mean, what's your kind of CV, career path, journey? How have you got to where you are? How would you answer that, you think?
Well, my story is that I worked in the city for many years. I'm not going to say how many, obviously. The lady never reveals that kind of information. But for many years in the city, worked my way up to be an account manager at a trading software company. So dealing with the big banks, the big boys, your HSBCs, your BAMLs, and the like. So a very different kind of clientele, a very male-dominated world. And a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Met some fantastic people, some great experiences. And I guess in parallel to that, I'd always been interested in property and been encouraged to sort of poke that fire, if you like, by my family. And so I kind of did it on the side as a very traditional buy-to-let landlord. So I built up a small portfolio of properties, and over the years was able to then buy property for a couple of members of my family, and was very happy with that. And I think really it got to the point where I guess perhaps everyone does it with the city, that you reach a point where you've done it, and I guess it kind of lost its buzz for me, and I just kept being drawn more and more into the property side of it, and I was very keen to take it to the next level, to a professional level, to a full-time level. And because of what I'd done in the past, and I guess the career path that I'd chosen as well, it enabled us to step away and do that. So I'd been the traditional buy-to-let for over 10 years, and then the parallel working career in the city. And that's brought us to where we are today.
Interesting. Property in the blood. Was it just the mum and dad level that got you that? You know, when you took it up, it was in the family, or is it every single generation? Did they explain where it came from, how they had that awareness, if you like?
Yeah, well, I come from a family of builders on both sides. And on my mum's side, so my maternal side, there's a property business on that side that goes back a few generations, and I think got drank away by one generation and then built back up again to a very successful business from my great-grandfather, and continues today. So I do have it on both sides of the family, and spent many a time going around new builds and checking out properties, and that was part of some of our weekend entertainment sometimes. So it was part of my life, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. A real kind of whole environment around that. That's fascinating. So Stuart, Emily has just apologised to the nation that she caused, with her market pals, the crash of 2008. It's good that she's covered that. Really appreciate that. I'm getting a look there. But for your own background, if you take kind of look back over your own career, your journeys, etc., there's a big sporting element involved for yourself as well. But how would you kind of summarise things?
Well, sport has played a massive part of my life so far. I'm from a very working class background, so my dad was a builder and still is a builder. I stayed with him last night because I was in Bath, and he's stepped out of retirement today, and he's gone in to help the old company he used to work for. They're under a bit of pressure, so I've kind of been surrounded by building sites and dusty old vans and trowels and all that kind of stuff for most of my life as well. Interestingly, building and houses and stuff never really interested me, so it was sport that really played a big part. And really, it was sport that I was able to kind of show myself off. I wasn't very good with the academic side at school, really, although I probably didn't spend that much time concentrating on the classroom stuff. So I played professional sport for a couple of years, but looking back, I was one of those talented sportsmen who didn't really understand what they had and was quite lazy with it. So that opportunity got taken away. And after I'd blamed everybody else for that opportunity being taken away, and suddenly looked at myself in the mirror, which was probably 3 or 4 years after I got released as a professional cricketer, I vowed never to make the same mistake again. And that is whatever I want to do and whatever my goals are, I would work as hard as I needed to in order to become a success. And so whilst I was still playing cricket, it was coaching really that was the natural kind of progression for me. And I didn't have that playing track record, and cricket still has. If lots of players who've had long, distinguished careers seamlessly go into coaching careers, but I didn't have that. So in my own mind, I needed to do it the hard way. And so I went it through the levels. I started coaching in primary schools, secondary schools, county age groups, and then ended up working as assistant head coach at Surrey, worked at international level and everything else. But when I look back, I'm quite embarrassed when people ask me to talk about that, and I always have been, because I'm a bit of an introvert, really, and I prefer to talk about what I learned along the way, about the people and the skills that was needed to coach at primary school level versus international level, and things like that. So I learned a hell of a lot about myself as well. And there was a couple of kind of personal things along the way as well, which I don't mind sharing. One was Emily's my second wife, and I've got a couple of gorgeous children. And Elliot, my son, who's now 23, was born blind genetically. And so there's nothing that can be done with his sight. And when I look back now, and the reason I'm opening up and telling this story is that for selfish reasons, having a son, I was really excited, playing cricket in the back garden, playing football, etc., etc. And I was really quite sad for myself as well as for him, because I thought about all the things that he was going to miss out on as well. He's turned into an amazing young man who is brilliant at IT and working for the NHS. And the reason, that had quite a profound impact on me as well as every other people. But the positive side of that was my language skills. So explaining the colour blue to my son, it was a lovely blue sky and things like this. So whilst I wished that he could obviously see, that was not the case. The knock-on effect of that for me and the rest of my family as well, our language had to be absolutely spot on, and I have no doubt whatsoever that that has had a positive impact on my coaching skills as well. So long story short, I had nothing else to prove in the coaching world. For years and years, I was proving things to myself that I could work at the highest level. I could have played at the highest level, maybe not, but I coached at the highest level and I had nothing else to prove. And so I really joined up with Emily to prove now that whilst I've been surrounded by buildings and builders and building sites and everything else, I'd never taken an interest in it. Now I am, and I'm using that same determination and nous, hopefully in the right direction, to become an expert in the property world as well, really.
Yeah, fantastic. That was brilliant. There's so much there to unpack. Absolutely brilliant. And the kind of summary of someone starting in at that ground level and having that work ethic and determination and consistency to rise up and go up through, from primary schools to international, that does not surprise me one bit about your good self. The funny self-confession about the self-introvert, that might be a funny thing to pull on later on as we discuss things, just based on how you operate these days, which is fantastic to see. That'll be a good one to dig into. But full disclosure, I know both of these fantastic people quite well, because through PMW, worked with them quite a lot with the Property Protégé programme we've got. They're now platinum inner circle level. They're doing tons of stuff in properties. A great example of people to grab so that listeners can be inspired and motivated and encouraged. And that doesn't surprise me one bit, how you went beyond that. And also you've got that self-awareness to see things about how your communication and your language adjusted and amended, how you're using the whole story of your son as one of the drives behind you, one of your determinations, how you've looked at your career and the coaching and you've reflected upon it, reviewed upon it, and then taken it into another field. That's fantastic, and it doesn't surprise me one bit about that. So, right, let's jump back to Emily then. Let's see where we are at present day then. So, you've had the background, you've had the childhood and the environment, spoke about buy-to-lets. When you first came into training, if you like, done the whole property protégé thing I touched upon there, was that the strategy you came with? Were you a blank canvas? Were you and Stuart, we're going to be doing this is our thing? Or have you seen that adjust in any way? What are you doing these days primarily?
Yeah, I think that training's been fundamental to where we are today. You don't know what you don't know. We've spent a lot of time, effort and money educating ourselves, because whilst I recognised that I had been very successful in what I'd done, I recognised that there was more out there, there was more to do, there was a better way of doing it, there was a more savvy way of doing it that I just wasn't aware of and hadn't come across in the way that I'd done it very much on my own over the last sort of 10 years or so. So we certainly went in as blank canvases and open minds to sort of say, okay, let's really see what this is about. You know, when the guys that are doing it at the next level, how are they doing it? What can we learn from them? What can we take away from that? So we were massive sponges to everything that we came across and the people that we met, and it's very consistent messages across the board. We've done various courses, and the messages are very consistent, which is encouraging, that people aren't doing completely dynamic things. There is a formula, there is a way of doing these things, and we were very open to that and very keen to understand and learn and utilise what information and knowledge we did have, and really just take it to that next level and beyond.
Excellent. And those strategies, Stuart, that you've seen these days, what would you say is the main focus for the two of you if it comes to the property world? There's so many things you can do, of course.
Well, do you know what, Richard? We because of all the education and the information that we received, we probably got involved with too many strategies, looking back, which is quite an interesting challenge in itself, really.
Yeah.
But we've chosen Bath as our area because that's where I'm from originally. Mm-hmm. And as you may or may not know, that service accommodation to create cash flow was really important, with us both stepping away from our jobs, and we certainly see that service accommodation is a vehicle to help maintain our current lifestyle at the moment. Mm-hmm. So service accommodation is definitely a primary strategy. We're in the process of buying some property up in Blackpool, so that will be keeping hold of those and working with a managing agent and working with DSS tenants up there, where that's completely outsourced. So that's real long-term strategy to give us that income, that cash flow as well.
Right, so holding them not for a service accommodation purpose, but holding them just the kind of traditional buy-to-let strategy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because we wanted that mix of shorter term. So the service accommodation is on a rent-to-rent basis. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of shorter term. Let's go in there. Let's set it up correctly. Let's get that cash flow going, and then the longer term cash flow from keeping hold of those properties as well up in Blackpool. And then most recently, we're kind of, doors have opened up to us, and by networking and using social media more recently than anything else, opportunities are coming our way. So land is certainly something that we're desperately keen to get involved in as well.
Right, fantastic. But you don't feel now that that's spreading yourself too thin anymore, like you did do at the start when you were trying to do everything. Have you got to that nice position? Do you feel like here's a service accommodation plan bubbling along, here's the buy-to-let thing, so the land, we can still cope with it? Have you got enough space and capacity there, do you feel?
Yeah, see, I can only talk for myself, and looking back now, and we're only looking back like 3 or 4 weeks, my mind was in absolute chaos. Because I had all this new information given to me and I wanted to do everything.
Yeah.
And what we've now committed to doing is, okay, let's strip it back. Where are our skills? Where do we have the contacts? Where are our networks? Let's just focus in on those for now. And then really just set some kind of medium and long-term goals as well. But our short-term goals are definitely what we're focusing our efforts on now.
Right, excellent. And Emily, you're having loads of success in that field, and we're getting updates from you all the time. Well, here's the next one we've got opening up in Bath. Can probably dive into that. But cash flow that Stuart touched upon, is that something for all the listeners that are listening in just now, the novices, people in their cubicles want to get started? Is that something you would recommend that people focus on as one of the things to keep them going and make a success of it in the property world?
I think it probably depends on your personal situation and what you're looking to do. So if somebody is looking to step away from their full-time job and whether they focus on doing things in property or just want property to be able to supplement what they do so they can go off and windsurf all summer, then you need that cash flow. So if you are stepping away from your employment, you do need to ensure that you've got that cash flow in place, because any kind of fund, no matter how big it is, will simply disappear if you don't have that continual cash flow to pay the bills. So if someone is looking to do that, that would be my suggestion, to ensure that they've got the cash flow coming in to supplement that, which may not necessarily be their exact wage today. I was earning obviously a lot of money in the city. I don't need to straight away supplement that. It's really about making sure you cover those bills so that you can then focus on the other things that you want to do within property. So it does depend on someone's situation and what they're looking for, but cash flow is king for us.
Excellent, good stuff. These are good wee insights to pick up on. So, Stuart, I don't know if Emily was trying to suggest that you've been in Bath just windsurfing. I don't know if that's. I'm going to leave that there. She seemed to be suggesting that, but can you confirm you were working hard and you've got a new place up and running there now in Bath?
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Yes.
It's our second flat. The first flat's really nice. That's a 3-bed. Recently refurbished, which we've agreed a 3-year. We rented it for 3 years, and then the second one came completely out of the blue. This was a relationship with a letting agent which we established, and they had a flat that the owner was more than happy to offer it to us for the purposes that we wanted it for. And they called us, and it's those kind of phone calls you get completely out of the blue, and those opportunities you think, bloody hell, this is actually working. This process is actually working. And so we secured the flat, and I was there this morning. Well, I'll tell you what I was doing. I was washing up all the knives, forks, spoons, saucepans. I was giving it a man's touch with some ornaments and all sorts of things.
Oh, beautiful.
And getting it ready to hand over to the managing agent, who's going to do some photographs for us pretty soon.
It's very glamorous property, very glamorous.
You have approved, yes, you've seen all of this. Excellent.
Yeah, I bought the ornaments and things. So
your beauty.
Constantly having to send back photographs. Is this okay here? Yeah.
over a bit, just to the left. Oh, fantastic! That's excellent. And well, let's pull on that thread then. Service accommodation. So it is something I've touched upon in the past with some different guests on This Week in Property. But again, listeners are out there listening in. Oh, okay, so this couple's doing this as well now in Bath. What would you say is the main lessons you have found in your journey so far? If someone's thinking about that, service accommodation, right, I'm going to find my place, I've picked my town, I know what I'm up to, right, okay, I'm going. What would be the kind of top 5 do's, don'ts, the biggest learning things you've found? Who wants to pick up on that one first of all? Who's got the best idea? Emily.
we could do it between us. I guess the first thing that you need to think about is the area. Where are you looking to do this, and why does it work? So for us, it was about serviced accommodation is obviously holiday let, so why would people want to go on holiday there? I mean, you've got places like Bath, you've got places like London, places like Cambridge. There are some very obvious big cities that people do go and visit, either for the day or over a period of days. And they're incredibly popular with foreign visitors as well. And they love to come to certain places in order to get a taste of England. So we were choosing Bath because why wouldn't you want to go and visit Bath? It's a beautiful place. It's got so much history and culture. There's the sporting elements there as well. That's the door shutting with the wind. So there's a lot of reasons to go to Bath, and there's a lot of festivals and all sorts of things that go on there. So it's a great city to go and visit. And then obviously the added bonus is that Stuart is from Bath, knows it very well, and has a huge number of contacts in Bath. So it made sense for us to choose that as a place to go. We didn't really want to touch on London. There are different regulations in London. It's a little bit more complex. It wasn't really something that particularly appealed to us, certainly not at this stage, although it is a place that does work. But we wanted to start with Bath because of the love and passion for it and everything that it has going for it. So I think choosing your area is absolutely key. And then I think it's really about, for us, we're remote, so we don't currently live in Bath, although we are looking to move back that way. But even so, irrelevant to whether or not we were there or not, we needed a good management company on the ground to run those properties. We were very keen on it being a very sort of high level experience for people visiting. We really wanted someone to do the meet and greet and ensure that they were okay, not a call service and not a key box on the outside. We wanted it to be a different level of service and experience for anyone visiting Bath, because we felt that was in keeping with the standard of Bath as well. Mm-hmm. So that's been an interesting journey, trying to find somebody that works at the same level as us. And I think that perhaps we have quite a bit of knowledge in that area. And often you perhaps use a management company because you don't necessarily have the knowledge yourselves, whereas we do have the knowledge and we do have expectations and we do have certain things that we want to happen and things to be in place. So we've now got a very good company in place who have been in the industry for 15 years, so really know Bath very well. And know the business very well, and are very creative with all sorts of things through to how you set up the adverts, because you obviously need to advertise them and put the right wording in place there. So your adverts are very, very key. Photographs are key. So they've got an RTI, they've got some recommendations as to the kind of things, like the little bits and pieces that Stuart was very, very cleverly putting up in the property this morning, and wonderful eye for it.
Perfect installation.
Absolutely. So that's certainly key as well, having the right people on the ground to run it, because it's not just setting it up. You've got to think about the linen, who's going to be cleaning it, who's going to do the check-in and check-out. There's a lot more to it than just sticking an advert out there and letting it run. It's not something that will just run by itself.
Yes,
that's certainly quite important as well, I think. And even within Bath itself, you have to make sure you choose the right area. So really, you're talking about a 10-minute walk from the key attractions. Bath is obviously a city. You couldn't really be half an hour bus drive away to get there. It's that people aren't really going to be in. People will stay in those kind of places, but that's not really our key focus, and it wouldn't be my recommendation. It would be to be within the 10-minute walk of the key places to visit. So that's, going down to that level as well is really fundamental.
Interesting. That's for loads of great insights there. Some great golden nuggets. And Stuart, you touched upon earlier about the contacts, the relationships, the things that popped up, the agent who suddenly kind of came back to you and what have you. You've really found that, as you've said, an amazing kind of synchronicity with these things. But it's not magic. You have been doing the work and you've been planting the seeds and doing those networkings, as the kind of label that gets applied to it these days. But for that introvert that you mentioned at the start, it's a completely different world for you these days, isn't it? You're on social media, you're doing videos. My goodness, I see your face more than Mark Zuckerberg popping up on that Facebook these days. Was it hard for you? Was it a challenge? Have you found a comfort with it? You're definitely finding the results for it. So then, is it also something you would recommend to other people?
Well, there's a couple of things. So over the years, I have gotten into the habit of just touching base with people as and when I've met them. Right. Interesting people, not necessarily successful, but people who I have shared interests with and clearly shared values with. I've just gotten into the habit. I reckon over the last 15 years of just touching base with them every now and then. And some of these people I met 15 years ago, but we've actually communicated fairly often. Right. And by doing that, you never know what might come of it. And a number of these people, really, really nice people, have now gotten to know what I'm now doing and are really interested. And, and they're from various backgrounds. And I'm pretty certain that we will continue to work with them to see if there's any kind of mutual interest that we can kind of help each other with, really. And so, my introvert way of doing things in the past was the old text message. In terms of social media, Richard, I don't mind telling you that it has not come naturally to me whatsoever. It doesn't feel natural. I have no idea how it's coming across, but when we did the project course up in Glasgow a few months ago, Billy, Paul, yourself, Sean, we just hear these constant message, the importance of content, social media content. And I kind of thought, yeah, it can't be that important. But, and so we were kind of busy beavering away with our contact list already and network we've already established. But I cannot tell you how, by using social media and put myself in a completely uncomfortable zone, filming myself, listening to my accent, putting something out there that actually took 15 or 20 takes, has completely sped up our network. I'm getting messages through LinkedIn, Facebook in particular, just asking about what I'm doing, how we might be able to help people. And in the last 3 days, we've had 2 messages come through, and we are meeting a potential preferred investor on Wednesday, and we're having a video link to a guy in Australia later on this week as well. So the social media thing, it's surprised me, and I've made a real conscious drive on this, particularly in the last week, and it's just proved that actually it does work. And I've gone through the whole thing. Are they really interested in this? Who won't be interested in this? What have I got to offer that people might actually listen to? And actually, some of our videos have been watched over 1,000 times, shared a number of times, and all of a sudden we're now reaching people, which is just outstanding. So yeah, I cannot stress enough, introvert, extrovert, we reap the benefits massively.
That's fantastic. That's brilliant, and it's great for listeners to hear. That those real stories. Or this, I'm not like that. I don't like Facebook. I don't like LinkedIn. I don't like such and such. Well, listen into these people. Here's this guy who's self-confessed introvert and doubted it. Nah, it's not really for me. And I'll just have a couple of quick text messages. And then you've went through it. You've tried it. You've experimented. You've laid down the seeds. You've kept the consistency, which is definitely part of your character. That's for sure. And you're seeing the results, which is. It's great. It's absolutely great. Lo and behold, you're doing video messages with us. Oh my goodness, that is fantastic. And yes, remember people listening in, go back to the show notes, hook in there, because we've got the contact links for Stuart and Emily here. You can head off and see these fantastic videos. I love them. I love seeing them coming in. And they have great content. They've got great value. And I know exactly what you're talking about, that voice inside your head. What is I'm not going to publish this. What on earth is this? This is no value at all. But it so is. It so is. Now, Emily, we've danced around the subject here. We've walked on eggshells. I've spoken about business and property. Well, let's get to the meat and the bones here. This is not a podcast with Emily or a podcast with Stuart. This is a podcast with Emily and Stuart. This is a couple. Now, that can bring about a lot of things, as we well know, relationships, dynamics, etc. Things pop up, and we not always in the best of moods. And if something happens in the home life, well, guess what? I can escape. I can head off to work, and then I'll come back, and maybe she's calmed down by then, or maybe we can talk about it. Oh, well, I'll tell him. I'll tell him when he comes back from work. But if you're in the same business, if you as a couple are existing at home and you as a couple are existing in the business, you don't have those wee escape paths. So how on earth do the two of you make this work so seamlessly, so flawlessly, this perfection, this love story? Give up some of your secrets.
I actually think it does actually work really well for us. I don't think it's necessary for everybody. I think that because we are very good friends, first and foremost, soulmates.
Oh, start the music, cue the music.
But I think that because we have such a strong relationship as a couple and as friends, and we communicate very well with each other, it actually does work well, which, I'm not going to lie, has surprised me. We're not perfect all the time. We don't sort of, skip around the house holding hands and everything. There are times when it can be quite stressful, and we're having a hurdle that we're having to jump over and work through. But actually, having done an element of it myself on my own for, certainly over 10 years, it can be quite a lonely business. And I think there's a lot of pressure. You put a lot of pressure on yourself to be making those big decisions. And whilst to some extent you think, well, okay, it'll only affect me if it goes wrong, and there's more people involved in our lives now, but it is quite lonely, I think, and it is I found it quite a pressure at times to make those decisions and to run with all of those mortgages and those buy-to-lets by myself.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting is doing the courses together. And we were probably one of just a couple of people doing it together, that we could walk away, because there's a lot of information that you get on the courses, a huge amount of information, which can be very, very overwhelming. And your hands aching because you're writing it all down, and you're picking up what you can, and it's moving at a pace, and you're not sure you necessarily got everything. And then we would sort of step away in the evening and chat about it and talk through what we'd picked up, what we'd learned, what we found interesting, what we found difficult, what we found confusing. And we were able to sort of bounce that sort of stuff off each other and reconcile it to some extent and be ready for the next day and be prepared. And I do remember watching a few people and seeing them looking like rabbits in headlights.
Yeah.
And being quite overwhelmed by the whole experience. And we were very relaxed about it because, we're big talkers. We like to talk things through and go through things. And that's actually really important. So it does actually help just to vocalize some of your concerns or some of your thoughts or some of your ideas and have someone to do that with. Which actually, I think we're really lucky.
That's fantastic. Now, Stuart, if I pick out some buzzwords there from Emily, what I'm heard friendship, started with friends and then businesses on top of that, if you like. I heard communication. I heard the couple being the opposite of a really lonely business, as it can be, property, trying to do it yourself. I heard sounding boards. I heard, you can thrash things out, the doubts, the ideas, the avenues, the tactics. Is there particular ones you would pick on as well, or is there more that you would add to that?
Well, we've certainly had no clashes. So I'll second that one.
Fantastic.
For me, working with Emily as a business partner, there is certainly a massive respect for her as a person, and also what she has already done in property. Because, like I mentioned earlier, I haven't really got involved in property before in my life until now. It's always kind of been there because of my father and so on.
Yep.
But because there's a massive respect from me to Emily with what she has already achieved with her portfolio and so on. That is in my mindset. I haven't put her up on a pedestal whatsoever, but she's there for me to learn from. Mm-hmm. Not with everything, but there is certainly a number of years there that she has already ploughed through by herself that I can learn from. So that's the first thing. I mean, what I generally do is we hear this word focus a lot, and what I generally have to do in the morning, I have to just focus on one thing constantly. And so we don't always do it very well, I don't think. I'm not talking out of turn here. Allowing somebody that space just to focus on that for a period of time. And then once that period of time is lapsed, we kind of get together, have a coffee, have a green tea or whatever it might be. But we're living in the same house. If we're both working at home at the same time, one of us in the dining room, one of us in the study, and we just crack on with that, and we're fully focused on that until such time, after 45 minutes or, an hour maybe, we might need a bit of a rest. And lastly, the only other thing I'd add to that is that it helps when you have somebody to work with, and it doesn't have to be husband, wife, girlfriend, I don't think. But it needs to be somebody that understands you, because I have certainly felt the benefit of somebody I'm working alongside, Emily, that knows when I need a bit of space and when I need a bit of company, when I need a bit of chat, and when I need to get out on the golf course or go out on the bike for a couple of hours. And I do believe that in terms of efficiency, not feeling like you're alone is really important. Now, it could be your mentor. It could be employing somebody you get to know really well. So you kind of bounce off each other, and you kind of get to know each other and so on. So from that point of view, the partnership for me has worked really well as well. You kind of sense things with the other person, and you respect what they need at that particular time. You just allow it to happen.
Excellent stuff. That's really interesting how you explain that concept of, yes, it's a couple, yes, it's a partnership, but there is that space where you jut off and you become individuals. You individually focus on a task, and then you come back together and bounce those ideas and updates and communication and stuff. That's fascinating. That might be one of the kind of real keys of making it work, I suppose, because you can't just always be joined at the hip doing every single minute task together, of course. Do you see it continuing that way, Emily? Do you see any things you've still to iron out, or have you got your schedules laid out the way you want it to? Are you still finding your feet working together? How would you look at that?
I think life's a constant learning curve, and I think that you have to be able to adapt to whatever situation you're in and whatever's going on around you. So I'm sure we will continue to evolve in what we're doing as we continue to grow the business. Again, certainly for me, that ability to sit down and focus on the things that I want to do, what I need to do, are really important. And typically we do that first thing in the morning, that we're in our separate rooms and head down and doing stuff, and then we sort of get together later on and do stuff. And I think also the key is almost, I think we do it unconsciously, but separating the business from the pleasure side of things. So, we still, we get to a point where we're like, okay, I'm quite tired now. Let's leave this. It might be 8 o'clock at night or something like that. It's like, let's leave this, put it to one side. We're going to go and sit down and watch the TV or have a chat or take the dog for a walk or whatever it may be, and make sure we have that couple time as well.
Exactly, yeah. So do you define it up front, or these are our working hours, or do you just kind of feel it out together? No, listen, come on, let's go for a walk, or let's go and watch a movie. Or how do you work
feel
that?
it out? Yeah, just feel it out, depending on because no 2 days are the same for us. So there's all sorts of different things going on. So you can't really have a timetable and a schedule to work by. It's just whatever's happening that day and what you need to do that day. You know, we might be up in town, or we might be on the phone doing, like this morning I was doing a huge amount of admin stuff for this serviced accommodation, which, you know, is not particularly exciting, but it's stuff that you have to get done. And Stuart was down in Bath and sorting out the what we needed to do at the serviced accommodation. And so we're doing different tasks, and and then tomorrow will be different again. And I think that's just how you have to be. You have to be flexible. You have to sort of work with the moment, and I think we just do it naturally at the moment. I hadn't really been conscious of the fact that we sort of have a kind of way of doing things, but we obviously do. But I think part of that is also because we know each other very well.
Yeah, that's it. You know, Stuart was touching upon that kind of, it's almost like telepathy. Oh, no, you need some space. Or, well, actually, I'm just going to deal with this. Or, no, let's get together. Let's talk about this, because I'm not quite sure about this thing. Yeah, you've got that understanding, which comes from the friendship. It comes from being the couple.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Yeah. That's great.
There might be, I mean, that approach suits us as people.
Yes.
And there might be another couple that they need to formalise things a little bit more, but what Emily just talked through there certainly suits us as a couple. But, you know, bear in mind that you know, if there are any other couples out there thinking about going into business, understanding the person that they are and their partner and the dynamic of them as a couple and business partners. Does it need to be more formal, or does it not? Just let it flow, whatever it might be. It's important to understand, right, how are we going to make this work together? And for us, it's just like that constant flow, chill.
Yeah, and actually we've learned a lot about each other as a couple through this experience, because there was a guy that we worked with a few months ago who kept talking about me being a high D and Stuart being an owl, and I was sort of going, mm-hmm. And in the end, I said, what are you, I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean high D? And he said, you're a high driver. I was like, right, okay. And he said, and Stuart is an owl. I said, what do you mean by that?
Right.
And he said, you're very driven. You're very focused. You're all about the action. You move forward. You do stuff, and you just go for it. Whereas Stuart likes to analyse and likes to read and likes to do research, and I find that a little bit boring and tiresome, and I think I should just do it, you know, just have a bit of action. Whereas Stuart's like, I'd rather sit here for 4 years and read about it first and then do it. So actually what we discovered was that there's a happy medium somewhere between the two of us, because you do need to do your analysis and your research and really understand what it is that you're getting into and what you're doing. But you also need to take action. You can't just keep reading things and listening to podcasts and so on and so forth. So actually we found that there were, we each had positive and negative traits, but that they could complement each other. And it could actually work very well. And it does. We are sort of different from a work ethic point of view. We're quite different personalities from that side of things, although we're both very, very hard workers. So it has actually worked quite well, but we learned a lot. I didn't understand that to start with. And initially I found it a little frustrating that Stuart wanted to read about everything, but then I think he was worried about the fact that I just wanted to plough ahead at 100 miles an hour. So that was actually a good learning curve for us, I think, really very early doors, and was actually fundamental in ensuring that we worked well together.
Yeah, and as ever, the truth is somewhere in the middle, isn't it? You've got a nice balance here. That's fascinating. A high driver and an owl. I've never heard of that before. I wonder where that kind of reference comes from. You know, the Myers-Briggs and all these different types of analysing. I've never heard that particular one. Fascinating. Yeah. Right, now, come on. Tell me the truth, right? Tell me the bad. Give me all the bad here. All these listeners listening in. This high-flying couple doing things left, right and centre. So one of them's off putting up ornaments in between windsurfing. They've got this serviced accommodation thing nailed down. This is a doddle. What's been the challenges? What's been the moments of doubt or dread or hassles or pulling your hair out? If I said the word challenge and you looked over that, position, your journey in property, where does that take you? Who wants to pick up that one first?
I think that one of our biggest challenges has been energy, in the sense that because we've done a lot of travelling with these sort of early days of, we've been up to Blackpool, we've been to Liverpool, we've been up and down into London, we've been to Bath, and I think that that's very, very tiring. We try and use that time wisely by doing phone calls that we need to do, so making the car our office, listening to podcasts and keeping it sort of work related to make the most of that time. But it is very tiring being on the road as much as we had been. That's reduced now, which I think has helped. But I think that when you're tired, then you're probably less, or a little bit more sensitive to each other, and in the negative sense, and less tolerant of things. So I think that was hard. I was certainly tired for a long time. We came up to Glasgow, we had time up in Glasgow and everything, and which is fantastic stuff. But that can be quite early doors. It can be quite energy draining, which obviously puts a sort of pressure on. But I think then I sort of go back to that communication thing, when we sort of turn around and say, okay, well, I'm upset about this, or I'm stressed about this, or I'm trying to work through this. That's key. That's key that we do that. And we don't always do it necessarily really well 100% of the time, because we're human. But when we do have that, we're like, oh, okay, it's out there, and it's okay, I get that now, I understand, that's fine, okay, let's move forward. So I think that's forced us to work better on our communication with each other, to better understand why the other one is reacting a certain way or feeling a certain way, or whatever it may be, and getting it out on the table. And that goes for any, like we said before, goes for any partnership, any business partnership that you have, and the same as a personal partnership, that you have to make sure you've got that communication between each other, so that you make sure that you're not making assumptions as to why they're reacting a certain way, and you're filling in the gaps yourself, but you actually know what your challenges are and what you're trying to work through, and do it together. So that was hard, I would say.
Yeah, energy. That's a good one to touch upon. Yes, and I didn't call you the jet setting Barneses for nothing. I'll tell you, every time I looked into the different Facebook groups and stuff, you were here, there, and everywhere. It was unbelievable at times, honestly. And Stuart, for yourself, the word challenge. Looking back, was it a lost deal? Was it a rejected offer? What was it? What pops up for you?
Yeah, I mean, making sure that when deals do fall through, or the challenges, and we've got a challenge at the moment, which I won't go into, but making sure that you stick to the facts, as opposed to making it an emotional connection to it. So it's not a personal thing. Yeah. So it's making sure that you detach the emotion from it and keep it at a business level. The only other thing that I would add to that is, I mentioned it earlier on about me looking at myself in the mirror and not blaming anybody else if I don't achieve my goals, and making sure I didn't make the same mistake again, and not be lazy, and I will search opportunities, getting myself out of my comfort zone, etc., etc. The challenge that I personally face is the belief that there's always something more that we can do. And so to bounce off what Emily just said, I don't always recognise when we do need to replenish energy. And if I'm driving up and back to Liverpool in a day, which we've done a couple of times, it's just that thing that needs to be done. And then the next day, right, what needs to be done now? What needs to be done now? What needs to be done now? So the challenge for me really is every now and then kind of stepping back and tuning into how I really feel, as opposed to that work ethic, which we both have, and ensuring that we are successul. I mean, the careers that we've had could be perceived as being successful. It depends how you define success. Mm-hmm. It really does. But success to me now in the property world is making sure we got loads of plates spinning, and we know when it's work time and we know when it's play time. And actually, I don't personally mind at the moment turning a bit of play time into work time. Mm-hmm. And so that's my challenge. I need to recognise what the right split is, what the right balance is. Because let's be honest, we're new to it really as a partnership. So I have no idea where we'll end up, but it will be building an empire, and it will be kind of leaving a bit of a legacy, not just for ourselves, but what really drives me is looking after our families as well.
Yeah.
So that's what really drives me. But in terms of challenges, that's it for me.
Right, okay. I'm going to pull you back on the looking at the future stuff. I want to finish on that front. In fact, I want to be respectful of these lovely Barnes' time. But Emily, before I get Stuart to look forwards, let's look back the way. If you're that novice listener listening in, on your journey, on your experiences, everything you've been through, is there anything you would go back and change? Or if I was starting all over again, I wish I had done such and such, or I wish I hadn't done such and such. Are there any wee tidbits that you would throw out to a listener if I gave you that topic to think on?
I think the things for me that if I could change, because my journey was a long, drawn-out journey, if I wanted to do it quicker, I would certainly have looked to educate myself earlier so that I was a lot more knowledgeable in the early days than I was. And I think also surrounding yourself by the right people, whether that be with your mentors and networking with the right kind of people. I think that the thing that we've really enjoyed is the networking. We meet so many different people with different experiences, different life stories, and it's fascinating stuff. It's really stimulating stuff. And actually I find that really enjoyable, and then it does open up other doors as well, either directly or indirectly. And I think those kind of things are quite important for if I was to do it again. I think I've learned a lot from Stuart with the networking, because he's very, very good at it. And I've sort of absorb the kind of way he does it in order to be better at it myself, because it's not something that I'm particularly comfortable with. So that's massively outside of my comfort zone. And I think it's surrounding yourself by the right kind of people and giving yourself that education, I think gives you a good core foundation in the property world.
Interesting. Okay, there you go, listeners. You heard that: education, networking, peer group, all that kind of thing. Fantastic. And Stuart, then, so let's look forward. We touched upon it in a few different ways, how you're going to expand a few things, how you're really looking to get into the land development side of things as well. But you mentioned that L-word, legacy. What is it you see? What is the vision? Is there an end goal? Is it just a journey? Are there milestones? Are there markers? What lies ahead?
Well, we haven't defined where we want to end up. Although, in a book of notes that I read recently, reread recently, I had... It's quite an interesting one, this, because there's the emotional journey where we both do whatever we can for our families, and so as part of families we like to be generous where we can, and me personally, there's a couple of things. I want to make my children and my mum and dad very proud of what I'm doing and what I've done and what I'm going to do. Now, I find it very difficult to actually define exactly what that is, other than leaving something for my children is really important, and that is a property portfolio that we can leave for them that will stand them in good stead, which they can take on, which we will at some point educate them on how to manage it. Whether they could want to completely outsource it, that's completely up to them, or take on the management of that. Again, that's completely up to them. I really want to look after our parents. And I've got one brother, Emily's got a sister. And I would love nothing more than to hire a private jet, book a swanky villa somewhere in the Caribbean, and just take everyone on a holiday, completely expense everything ourselves. So there's the kind of materialistic things that I would really like to do that they are important, to allow our families who aren't in as fortunate a position, you just treat them and you give them those experiences, and not to expect anything in return. But in terms of moving forwards, there's the emotional side of it, but I really want a multi-million-pound property portfolio, a network of really good people. We surround ourselves with good people that look after us, look after our families, look after the business. We will do the same for them. And that's really where we've started. And for me, that's the vision. So there's an element of making sure that we are comfortable and we have the choice of seeing the wonders of the world, or the choice of continuing building this empire, whatever that eventually looks like, as well as ensuring our families are really well looked after. That's it for me, really.
Fantastic. A noble gesture indeed. I like that. That's a nice vision, a very nice vision, touching upon a lot of things that can drive you forward. But you're looking at it with yourself. It's not just this, take thing. I want this and I want this money. You've got a bigger image than that. Your bubble is quite wide with your family and your the kind of descendants going forward and stuff. I like that. That's fantastic. Great thing to share. Appreciate that. There you go. That was tremendous. I hope you enjoyed that, listeners, as much as I did. Do you know something? Posh and Becks, they're in second place. They really are. When I meet them for dinner next week, I'm going to have to tell them, I'm sorry, the Barneses they're in pole position for me. Emily, Stuart, Mr. and Mrs. Barnes, thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Richard.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi folks, it's Richard here again. I really hope that you enjoyed today's show. Now listen, I've got 2 links to help support you on your property journey, and I want you to write these down when it's safe to do so. You might be driving in your car just now listening to the podcast, and that's fine, but please make sure that you get back to this and write down these links. Okay, are you ready? Got your pen in hand? So the first one, thisweekinproperty.com. Now that's the website for this podcast. On there, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out. What you can also do on there is catch up on tons and tons of past episodes. There are hours and hours of property related content and some amazing guests with some fantastic insights to help you on your property journey. So that is thisweekinproperty.com. Okay, next link, propertyprotege.com. Now let me spell that one out for you. PROPERTY PROTEGE. That's propertyprotege.com. Now what's it all about? Well, the Property Protege Intensive is designed to give you the lift that you need into the world of property. And if you've already started, if you've already got some experience, then this can help you accelerate your progress even further. The experiences that people have had at Protege and the success that they've achieved afterwards has been life-changing for many people. So go there right now if you're serious about property and if you want to build a highly successful property business. That's propertyprotege.com. So there you go. That's 2 links to some fantastic resources that are going to help you. And listen, talking about help, can you help me to help other people? You see, the more that we can share this podcast, then more people can learn from the fantastic guests that I've been so lucky to talk to. How can you help? Well, it's very simple and very quick. Just a short review on iTunes is going to help make that happen. If you go to thisweekinproperty.com/iTunes, that will guide you to the very place that you will be able to help other people. So thank you. Thanks for doing that, and thanks for listening into the show. And I look forward to bringing another great guest to you in the next show.